This is your Pain Game podcast, where we talk about the game of living in and with chronic pain and trauma, getting to the heart of how to heal. I am your host, Lyndsay Soprano. On this show, I plan on discussing with doctors, chronic pain patients, holistic practitioners, loved ones, and anybody that is interested in having their voice heard in the chronic pain and trauma world that we live in. So I have a love-hate relationship with this body over here, as some of you may very well know, having listened to the show or just know me personally. And if I'm honest with myself, I have struggled with self-esteem issues as far back as I can remember. And then you add chronic pain, traumas, an eating disorder, body dysmorphic issues, now this wheelchair of mine that I'm using far more than I want to. And so on, that love-hate relationship that I have with my bod is kind of morphed into a demon that I am slowly but surely working to fight off. And I don't know if I'm doing the best job, but I'm trying with all I've got, man. But as I keep working on myself these days, I'm finding that my physical pain is moving around my body, that it isn't just staying in my legs and feet anymore. I mean, it's still there, but it seems to have lessened a little bit in my legs. And now it's moving up into my upper body. And I'm not really quite sure why. I think that it's because I am finally facing traumas in my life. I'm opening up that Pandora's box of mine and facing things that I've needed to for so long. Past crappy decisions as well, and looking at my pain through a totally different lens, a lens that sees that this movement of pain might actually be a good thing, that it's trying to release toxicity. It's trying to release from all these traumas and these tribulations that have been thrown my way. And so this pain in my sternum and this pain in my brain and a migraine for 4 weeks and my shoulders are all puffed up and weird. It looks like my pain is pushing me down from my shoulders now. And I'm like, oh my God. So when I met our guest that is here today with me on Zoom the other day, she straight up called me out on my posture just by looking at me from my shoulders up. And I can't wait to have her explain a little bit as to why she's able to she's like a little body detective, how she can describe the pain that I was experiencing without even me talking to her about it. And it was really interesting. And so when we were done talking, I was talking to my sweetie about it, and he's like, well, we're going to do whatever it is that it's going to take, in this kind of naturalistic modality that she's going to get into. So today's guest is Dr. Amy Novotny. She founded the PABR Institute with the mission to provide pain, stress, and anxiety relief to those who seek a naturalistic form of treatment when other treatment methods have fallen short. And boy, do I identify with the fallen short part. Her unique technique and approach comes from her experience treating patients and clients in a variety of settings and with a wide range of patient populations over the past 13 or so years. Her background is in orthopedics, sports, geriatrics, balance disorders, nerve injuries, and of course, chronic pain. She has co-authored 2 Amazon #1 best-selling books, Don't Quit: Stories of Persistence, Courage and Faith, and the second one, Success Habits of Superachievers, which she shares her journey on how and why she developed the PABR method. So without further ado, my darling, I'd like to introduce my guest today, Dr. Amy Novotny. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me on, Lyndsay. I'm really excited to come in and share and just have a honest conversation about pain and whatever you'd like.
Well, thank you. So you're cool with us chit-chatting about your mission to provide pain, stress, and anxiety relief with your unique approach and technique?
Absolutely.
And how you basically figured me out on one damn Zoom call. I was just astounded by it. I'm like, how does she know this? It just kind of opened my eyes to yet another way of looking at pain and trauma and stress and emotion and what it does to our body. So can you talk to us a little bit about how you got started with your PABR method, what it is? And I know it's kind of hard to explain. I was having trouble trying to explain it to my sweetie, but I really want us to talk about the emotions and the stress and that influence of trauma and abuse and how you've helped your patients work through those in a naturalistic way.
Yeah, sure. I'll kind of go backwards. So people think, well, at least know that I do have some training and I am legitimate. So it's not just something I pulled out of thin air. So I started with schooling, got my doctorate in physical therapy. And I did that for about 5 years. And I realized, okay, that kind of helps people, but it doesn't really get to the root of problems. It's a nice guideline. It does help, but there's so much more to the body. And I was missing so much. And I'm a type of person, type A, get straight A's, where you're like, I can't believe I'm working with people and I can't solve all their problems. That really bothered me. It gnawed at me on the inside because I'm like, wait, I got straight A's all the way through school. I know everything that they taught us. I mean, literally, I studied. I was one of those really nerdy types. And I just couldn't. I'm like, there has to be more. And so I started doing some additional coursework, looking at asymmetries in the body. And I realized, okay, that opened a door. Then I started looking at how our breathing mechanics work. And at the same time, I was training to qualify for the Boston Marathon. I was running on a treadmill 3 times a week for 8 miles each time in about 55 minutes. And then I would do a long run on the weekend. But the treadmill was the important part. I'm on the treadmill and I start playing with my body position. So I'm gonna use the word position instead of posture because I'm gonna isolate it to how I position my rib cage. Because how you position your rib cage affects your whole body from head to toe. And when I talk about position, it applies to lying down, sitting on your hands and knees, walking, jumping, laying on your side. So I like to use the word position instead of posture, which we typically only associate with sitting and standing, that type of thing. So I started playing with my rib cage position and I changed my breathing mechanics and all that chronic runner's issues that you get when you're running marathons or longer distances, they all just went away. I literally, and I mean this in truth, I was on the treadmill and the tightness that I was feeling from running and doing other training and that it just went away in like seconds. I was like, oh, well, that was nice. I don't know what
Yeah.
I don't know what I did, but okay,
I want that.
do it. I'm gonna keep doing it. Whatever it is, I'm gonna keep doing it. And so I got off the treadmill. It didn't even feel like I had just run 8 miles under a 7 minute pace. And I was like, okay, so what did I do? Was this something I just stumbled on, or am I late to the game and everyone knows this and I'm just a really bad physical therapist? Like, I don't know. And it took me a little bit. I asked around and stuff and checked with other runners, and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I literally stopped stretching. I stopped scraping. I stopped foam rolling.
Hmm.
I just stopped all three of those and I continued to experiment on my own body. And the next marathon I ran, I dropped 7 minutes off my time, which is like eliminating a whole mile. Like that's a lot for a marathon when you haven't.
No kidding.
And I didn't change my training routine at all. It was just my body felt free. The next one after that, another 7 minutes. And both of those marathons, I blew through the qualifying time for Boston. I was just like, I just blew through it. There was no question I was going to Boston. I was like, wow, this is awesome. Okay, so what did I do? So that was like,
Yeah.
okay. Because, I'm still at the time doing physical therapy. And I'm like, wait, I'm stumbling onto something that helped me in seconds that I couldn't accomplish by following all my rules for physical therapy, rehab, recovery. And I was considered one of the better ones in the Phoenix area. I wasn't a slacker physical therapist. I was considered a good one. And I was like, okay, I got to figure this out. So, of course, I started putting it into a process, studying, looking at the nervous system. That's where things started falling together. I realized there's this nervous system component that I was affecting. And when I could relax myself by changing my rib cage position and my breathing mechanics, the tension in my body that was related to stress went away. Whether it was physical stress, mental stress, emotional stress, intellectual stress, relationship stress, I could get it to go away. And this is at the same time that my mom was dying of cancer, living in my house with hospice coming in and out.
That's
So
stressful and
yeah,
emotional. Oh my gosh.
yeah,
Yeah.
this was all at the same time. So I was under high stress conditions. Like you can imagine. I mean, they were telling me she's going to die any day. And it was just a whirlwind. And I'm figuring this all out at the same time. So I started asking people if I could apply it to them. Some said no, some said yes. And the ones that said yes, they started getting better faster. And I mean, I have cases and scenarios where you're just like, whoa, how did that happen? I mean, an older gentleman walked in his 70s, bent over, hand on his back. He could not stand up straight. And he's like, I need your help. I can't stand up straight. I hurt so bad. And I had him lay down. We went through this process of calming the nervous system down, changing his rib cage position and his breathing mechanics. He literally, I was like, okay, now let's see how you are. He sat up. He's like, wow. And I kid you not, he got off the table and he kicked his leg up like a cheerleader and said, woo! And of course, I don't recommend that. And
please don't do this at home.
I was like, oh gosh, please stop, sir, please stop. Because
oh my gosh.
I'm experimenting at this point and I'm giving him the option to try this process out, but I still don't know the ins and outs of it. I don't know if it's going to stick. I'm just like,
right. Yeah.
Oh, Ron, we just got you standing. Now you're doing like splits in the air type things. So, push come to shove, I kind of developed this into a process. I start studying the nervous system more. I start figuring out what it is I'm doing. That's a long journey over years. There's a lot of tears. There's a lot of frustration. There's a lot of pushback from doctors and physicians who say, you can't do this with my patients. If you do it, I won't let you. I want you let you work with my patients. My boss even got on my case. And I was like, okay, I have to figure out who I can do this with. And at one point, a friend of mine's son was a baseball player who had a nerve injury. And I started working with him, and he healed faster than typical nerve healing frames. He was a pitcher and he couldn't throw. And all of a sudden, he started pitching again sooner. And the neurologist, who's a famous neurologist in the Phoenix area, said, what in the world are you doing? And so once he found out about me, he started sending me the worst case scenarios, things that I didn't even know humans could actually survive. He started sending me information about, and sending me people. And so I'd work on just really rare conditions, weird scenarios. And, of course, that's stressful because you're like,
no kidding.
I'm used to someone having knee pain, not missing part of their ribs and having their lungs exposed, or just different conditions. And, I appreciated it. So then other doctors started to come see me. And eventually then people started coming to see me from out of state. And then I was hired by a world-renowned photographer to travel around and coach him in this process to help him avoid a knee replacement surgery and a rotator cuff tear, because he had come to see me previously, went home without pain for the first time in 40 years, slipped and fell on some water, busted up his shoulder, was told he had to have surgery. So he came and saw me. And within 3 days, we were able to get his arm completely overhead again with a little bit of pain. And so he said, I want you to coach me on this process so that way I can avoid having any surgeries this year. And so I did that. I left everything because I was still facing some resistance. And I said, I need a break. I need to go explore. And I'm into photography and I wanted to go to the Arctic and Antarctic. So I said, okay, I'm going to just give up my life and go. And I did. And it was a hard 6 months, a very hard 6 months. There was some great points. There were some very lows, but we kept him out of surgery. And when I was done, I started the PABR business. I started the PABR Institute because I wanted to take this to more than a local audience. I wanted to share this around the world. And it has evolved into a virtual aspect now. And now everything is virtual and I work with people all over the world.
That is unbelievable. That's the part that got me when you were talking to me, because we're so used to people having to, push us, twist us, crack us, bend us, pull us, poke us, prod us, cut us open. That is what we're used to. That's what we're wired to do, because that's what medicine has told us to do. Right. And I hate that because it has only brought me into more pain and more issues and more negative. So the fact that you can do this, I'm totally signing up on this, because I just the fact that you nailed me so quickly, just watching me. And even probably right now, you're analyzing my way I do things. Is she looking at me squeezing my arms right now? Because I am, because both of them are numb. Which feels fantastic, mind you. How can you do this virtually? That's what inquiry minds want to know.
Right. So let me explain a little bit about what we're doing. So there's a nervous system in our body called the autonomic nervous system. It runs our organs, our blood pressure, heart rate. It keeps us going because those organs don't have our voluntary muscles telling them to work. We need something that's more on an automatic basis. That autonomic nervous system also has a couple states where it can either ramp you up or calm you down. The problem is we get into a ramped up state, and a lot of daily activities, relationships, work, career contribute to that ramped up state. And you may hear that cortisol levels go up, your adrenaline go up. But what most people don't hear or hear talked about is how your muscles start to contract without your awareness. You don't even sense them beginning to contract. And what happens is one little stressor will kick in, your muscles contract, and then another one adds on top of it. And you're just working your way up, and the muscles tighten up, tighten up. And then the next day you wake up, you're like, gosh, I'm tight all over. Why am I tight all over? And what happened was your nervous system didn't get released. So your muscles learned to be tight. So your nervous system said, okay, you're going to go to sleep. I'm going to just keep those muscles being tight. And I'm just going to keep tightening them up because I was never told another thing and to do anything different. So I'm going to just keep that communication going and telling those muscles to tighten up. In the meantime, the muscles are tightening up on bones and joints through tendons, and they start to pull on bones and joints and start to pull them out of position. That's when you get tissues that butt up against each other, creates pain, inflammation, then you say, ow. And this happens over the course of years. Anytime you have a stressor, whether it's mental, emotional, physical, intellectual, whatever it is, it causes this body response. And the problem is we don't check in daily and we don't release this physical response. So over time, your body starts to change position. You start to hold yourself in a certain position that you didn't even know that you were doing before. That's going to lead to impingement of tissues and pain. And unknowingly, when we were young, we were taught the advice, chest out, suck your gut up and in, pull your shoulders back, which physically that stimulates your fight or flight nervous system to turn those muscles on to make you tight as well and to prepare you for fight, flight, freeze mode. So we have those things happening. In addition, as soon as you lift up your ribs and stick out your chest, you are now detracting support away from the diaphragm. And the diaphragm can stimulate a nerve to calm you down. But if you are no longer supporting the diaphragm or it becomes less efficient, now you have to revert to another way to get air in, which is why we lift up our rib cage or our shoulders or tilt our head back or arch our back when we breathe. You'll see this, just watch people. When they breathe, they lift from their lower ribs or they lift their shoulders or they tilt their head back or they arch their back or they shove out their belly thinking that belly breathing is diaphragmatic breathing, and it's not. And what they're doing is they're encouraging their back muscles to work even more, and that further stimulates the fight or flight nervous system. So we have to address how you position your ribs, the mechanics of your breathing, because those two paired together is what creates the magic to calm down that nervous system so your muscles release their abnormal pull on your bones and joints so the joints can get freedom to move again. So tissues stop pinching and butting up against each other.
Wow, it sounds like the best Christmas morning ever.
Yes.
I mean, you're watching me, like you're saying something and I'm noticing like I'm sitting funky, and I've created all of these weird ways to walk and to sit and to navigate my CRPS and the pain. And so it's like I walk on the outside of my feet, like I roll out. And so that's screwing up my hips and my ribs and my chest and my knees and my God, my aching back, and I feel like I'm 85 years old. It's like, and I've got the personality of a 17-year-old and I'm just like, damn it, So to find something like this is just insane to me. And we talked about it on our Zoomer, but it was like, I've Googled until the cows come home to find relief in other ways than Western medicine stuff, right? The spinal cord stimulator, that went in and damn near paralyzed me and that guy's out, breast implants, those guys are out. Like, I mean, I have like, there's nothing left in here. Like, I don't take pain pills. I've had to take ibuprofen, which I normally don't take anymore because I wouldn't have been able to even do this with you today if I hadn't, but I really don't want to be doing that. So that's a really good explanation of how that process works. So how do you then do this?
Okay. So what we do on Zoom, and Zoom is beautiful. The reason I use Zoom, I actually like it better than working with people in person. I love people. I love being in person, but there's a specific reason why this process works really well on Zoom. 2 reasons, actually. 1, it forces you to learn. So I'm not doing something to you. 2, it gets you far enough away from me that I can see your body working. If I am sitting by you and 5 feet away from you, it is hard for my brain and my eyeballs to take in your whole body. Usually when someone's really close to us, we're just focusing on like their face or one aspect of their body. But Zoom puts you in 2 dimensions, so I can see when things are out of position much, much easier. Also, we can record it and I can give you the recording and you can work through it yourself as well after sessions. But it's especially important for people in chronic pain who often when you touch them, there is a response. And we're trying to get away from that response of someone doing something external to you and working to give you more control over your body again. So everything that we do, you're giving me feedback. Yes, I can feel this. No, I can't feel this. And I'm watching to see what I can see in your body and what it corresponds to what you can sense. Because if I see your body changing, but you can't sense it, you don't own it. So that means we will change positions to find a position for you to actually sense what I need you to sense as your body changes, because then you start to own it and then you can actually make a change. But if you can't sense it, you're not going to make any difference in your life in terms of a long-term change.
Wow.
Yeah.
So did you just see that a migraine just shot across my face?
I did.
It was literally like lightning just hit my brain. So that makes sense though, being able to really look at the whole person versus like right now I'm focused on your mouth, right? Because I'm listening to the words that are coming out of you. I'm not looking at your hair. I'm not looking at your shoulders or anything like that. So I want to make sure that I'm processing the words that are coming out of your mouth.
Yeah.
And you can cover me up and not process my words. That's for sure. But okay. So how long do sessions like this last? How long do people come to you? And how long does it stick? I mean, I like the aspect of the learning part of it because that's totally my wheelhouse. Like I love to learn new things. I love to practice things, and I'm a good patient. If you tell me to do this, I'm going to do that. But I'm the one that needs that structure. I need that, like, just do this, Lyndsay. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's great. That's easy. Without it, like, okay, well, here's this book and just, try all this stuff and nobody's watching you. Nobody's holding you accountable either. And that's something that's really important too.
Yeah. So what we're doing is, we're going to look at every one of your basic daily motions. How do you reach? How do you sit? How do you lie down? How do you sleep? How do you walk? We're going to look at all of those because we're going to start to make micro changes in all of them. And part of the recording, giving it back to you so you can practice what we went through, that gives you a week to practice. And then we meet again. So the first session's an hour and a half because we have a lot to go over. It's just one-on-one, you and me, it's an hour and a half. Then the next week we work again and it's an hour and we're progressing things. So I don't work one-offs anymore with people because there is so much to teach you that I try to get as much as possible in 6 sessions.
Okay.
Sometimes we can't cover everything because it depends on how much your body can sense and feel. Now, someone who's had trauma and emotional abuse and different things, their body is possibly disconnected with their ability to sense things. So it might take longer. Someone who comes in and they don't necessarily have a past that they're still working through or that has stuck in their body, and maybe they just had like a knee injury, they might wrap up in 6 sessions and they know exactly what to do. So it depends on the scenario and how many things that we're working through to determine how long.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to be more than 6, but Here's to putting it out to the universe that I would love for it to only be 6. So after, let's say, okay, so I'm your patient, your client. I've gone through the 6. I'm assuming that we continue to practice, we continue to do the work, and it's not like, oh, you're done, bye, everything's perfect. I mean, I'm a realist in it, but a lot of people that live in chronic pain or have had the emotional abuse, the sexual abuse, physical abuse, where it's trapped in places. Do we release emotions through this process?
Yeah. So often when I do work with people with trauma, there's crying, there's body flailing, there's movements, there's shifting to a different personality. That all can happen, especially as someone's working through releasing areas of the body and they can feel the anger or the emotion come out.
Yeah.
And everything, like I've seen everything happen. So nothing really surprises me. And I just know the body, it stores things and it's how we protect ourselves. And so in order to free up the body, we need to release areas where it's been stored. And most people, they're embarrassed the first time. And then they just see my response and I'm like, yeah, let it out. And then they're like, oh, okay, well, I'll just keep letting it out.
Yeah,
And
it's going to be like voodoo when you see me.
I'm like, just let it out because
it's like poltergeist.
Yeah. You can dance, you go whatever you want.
Oh my, I would love to dance. Get me dancing again.
Yeah, there you go. But it's just a matter of we're working to get you to release stuff. There is a varied experience for everyone, just depending on what they've had in their body and how they typically release that. So it's everything is welcome. You know, some people cuss. It's some people shout. It is what it is.
That's interesting. It's almost like you're kind of a body therapist.
Kind of.
To a certain extent. This releasing of stress and emotion and pain and trauma is something that I've been very good at stuffing down. I am like the Academy Award winner of stuffing. And slowly but surely, I've been lifting my little lid open and like little bubbles are coming out here and there. And I'm like, ooh, that was a release that I needed. And it's just so weird what's happening with my shoulders and my head and my noodle, because I just feel like everything is condensed up here now, where it was always just my feet. But now when it started to affect my brain and my vision and my ability to focus and a lot of these other things that have kind of popped up, I'm really scared. And I just recently had a full body MRI because of it, because I'm like, I think something else is going on. In my heart of hearts, I feel like you're like, there probably isn't, Lyndsay.
No comment.
Actually, no comment. No comment to the peanut gallery. Yeah, I know, because I feel like it might just be all in my head. And that's a challenge too. But I mean, I know I'm in physical pain, but
yeah,
I also am a realist in relation to I've been through a lot. My body's been through a lot. I've lived like 9 lives. Am I just supposed to be dead after 9? Like I've lived so many of these lives and they've all been in 45 years, you know? So,
yeah. And can I comment on kind of what you just said that's all in my head?
Yeah, please.
A lot of people will say that, and I'll even hear doctors, they used to send me people and say this person's malingering. It's just in their head. And I will tell you, in all of my years, I have never found anyone where it's just in their head or they're making it up. There has always been a physical change in the body. It can be a response to an emotional event, but there is still that physical basis for their pain. For every bit of your pain, Lyndsay, there has been a physical change in your body that is really, truly causing pain in you. It's not in your head. It's not. And people, when they get told that, it rings at me because I'm like, please stop saying that to people, please. Because there is a physical change. And I mean, and I say this because I remember a lady, she came in, she was sent to me by that neurologist, and he was like, I don't know what to do with her. Every doctor sent her to me and said she was malingering. We did every scan that was known to mankind. And she keeps telling me she's in pain. And I took 2 seconds with her. I'm like, okay, you have pain here, 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 here. I can see this all happening. At that point, I've seen her in person and I'm like, I can poke here, here, here. I can see it all. And she's like, you're the first person to actually realize all of these spots and you could see where it's actually hurting me.
It's crazy.
And I was like, but it's true. And I apologized to her. I said, I'm really sorry that these doctors didn't believe you, that they didn't understand. They didn't have the training that I'm telling you about right now. But we're going to start this process. We're going to calm down that nervous system that you didn't know how to calm down. You forgot how to because it was never taught to you. Well, it's not even you forgot, it just was never taught. And we're going to work on getting you to sense the muscles release. And we went through the process, and guess what? Her pain went away.
It's unbelievable.
And I say this in all honesty because I don't like when people say it's just in my head causing the pain. I'm like, no, I just want to scream from the rooftops. No, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I've never seen a case where it's just in someone's head.
Thank you for saying that, because I know there's a lot of women, particularly because I tend, and I don't know if you've seen this, I'm assuming so, but I know a lot of my girlfriends and women in my life, it's like these men doctors just won't even listen to us. They just think we're batshit crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm sure men have experienced as well, but I'm speaking as a woman.
Yeah.
It's like, well, have you thought about that? You maybe are just making it up. I'm like, what? Yeah, you know what I want to do? I want to go buy a wheelchair and sit in it and do Italy that way. That's what I want to do. No. But then you kind of start thinking, you almost start being your own worst enemy, because then you're like, well, shit, maybe it is in my head. And like, oh gosh, like I'm not doing this right. Maybe I should have done that, because that wouldn't have been, it's just like this slippery slope where you start self-doubting and you start thinking, oh, well, I guess maybe it is in my head. And then this doesn't exist. So then what does it exist? Like, I mean, you just like, you start going down all these different pathways and all these scary places because of a doctor saying that to you. And it's one of the reasons why I've kind of avoided a lot of Western medicine in the most recent future, because I'm just tired of hearing like, well, I'm not sure that I can do anything for you because we think it's in your head.
Yeah.
It's not in my head, guys.
It's not.
It's
Yes.
not in my head.
It's not. It never has been, and it never will be.
So let's just say I'm going through this process. I'm getting great results. What's the future like as far as like tune-ups? Do we get tune-ups, or how does that work for like post-care from the main initial, 6, 7, however many sessions a patient of yours?
So after you do your initial round with me, or rounds, or whatever it turns out to be, so each week you're getting a recording, you're getting a list of do this, 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 and this. That list progresses. We're constantly changing things, because if you did something and it didn't elicit a response, I'm not going to have you keep practicing it.
Yeah. Doing the same thing, expecting different results. Insanity, of course.
Exactly. A week is usually long enough. You're either going to get it or not. So that means we need to change it and make it successful for your body. So as you're going through the program and through this whole process, we're changing, we're tweaking things. So your skills start out learning basics, and they start to get bigger and bigger, and you start to combine more things. So let's say we wrap up and we got you to where you want to be. Then we have a couple options. We can say we can do check-ins once a month if you want, or some people do start out once every 2 weeks, then go once every 3 weeks, and once a month, and then as needed. So, but when we wrap up, whatever that last session was, that's what you keep practicing, because it's going to combine a whole bunch of different concepts for your body. So the positions become more and more comprehensive, involving more body parts, more aspects, all with an underlying work on body position, breathing, nervous system, muscles relaxing or activating. That's the common theme on everything that we give you.
And so is this a daily practice that you end up doing afterwards, and how long approximately do those last?
So I do recommend it as a daily practice, and I usually give 3 or 4 things to do, and each one might be about 5 minutes.
Oh,
3 to 5
okay.
minutes. And what I'll say is you can do it in a couple ways. I usually like to say maybe do a couple in the morning, couple in the evening, or I'll say do 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, 1 in the evening. So what we're doing is I want you to do something where it breaks up your nervous system habits, so it pulls you out of that fight or flight state, so you release. In the ideal world, you do something throughout the day where it's just 5 minutes here, 5 minutes here, and 5 minutes there. I like something when you first wake up, when you go to bed, and then maybe something in the middle.
I think that, that definitely works for me. Some people like, okay, well, but I have my job and I'm at work, and then everybody, we can make up excuses to not do the right thing all the time.
Yes.
It's way easier to do that, but in the long run, it is so detrimental to just pushing it away. Like, I'm going to try that next week. I'll do that next week. It's procrastination on our well-being. Like, hello, come on now. And I can say that I've done it. I mean, wholeheartedly, I've avoided because I've been in fear that if I do yet another thing to try to help me, I'm not going to reap any benefits from it. It's more money out of my pocket yet again. We've spent a fortune on my bod. And now it's like, well, here's the next thing that we're going to try. And that's just, but what's the alternative? Like, we have to keep throwing spaghetti at something, but I know the kind of pasta that I don't like anymore. And that doesn't work for me, not unlike penne. I don't understand how people eat penne pasta. Anyways, like, you just try to have an open mind about things like this, because it isn't what we're taught. Like, well, you go to the doctor, you eat an apple a day and you're good to go. I'm like, that has not worked.
Yeah. And nutrition is definitely a factor.
Sure. 100%.
But if you address all those things and you're still having issues, then you haven't addressed the body and the nervous system and how those two interact together to recreate a new wiring system from the inside out. And that's the part that most people miss, especially those in chronic pain, and even those that have acute pain, is they don't take care to monitor the nervous system and get it to let go of abnormal holds on the body. And it's just, we don't know this. It's not in general medicine. It's not in general health and wellness. I was lucky to be in the right place at the right time, experimenting with my body, and stumbled on this, and then have studied and figured things out. And, have been extremely lucky that people chose to let me work with them so I could, be a guinea pig for me so that I can help create this process that I'm now doing now with people all over the world.
I think you're incredible for having done this and brought this to care for people like myself, because when you get to the point that I'm at, where I'm done. Like, I've moved through all of these different types of pain management, and I'm at a much healthier place to even do something like this that will open up, so many different paths for me to take that are in a healthier way, because everything that's been given to me has been pills and surgeries and all that stuff. I'm done with all of that. It's done nothing. It's only hurt me. So, and I'm not saying like, okay, if your appendix needs to get removed, guys, you need to get your appendix removed.
There's a difference.
There is a place. Right. Yeah.
There's a difference than orthopedic, and there's, yes, for sure.
For sure. So how do we get in touch with you and get started? Because I guarantee as soon as this episode is distributed, like 20 of my friends or people that I know are going to call me.
So the best place to go is my website. It's PABRinstitute.com, PABR, that stands for Pain Awareness Breathing Relief, PABRinstitute.com. And you can get information there. You can read testimonials. You can see interviews. You can just get some free resources, as well as anytime I work with someone, I do a discovery call, because I need to explain the process to people and make sure they understand what they're signing up for, and to make sure it's a correct fit, because I want someone to be successful, and I'm not here to waste their or my time. Life is too precious. Time is too precious.
It sure is. And it's a good way to wrap this up. Thank you so much for being here today with me.
Thank you, Lyndsay. I appreciate it.
You are exclusively invited to share this VIP pain journey together. Let's get to the heart of how to heal with you by my side. Please follow the Pain Game podcast wherever you digest your podcast content. We will be there. Visit us at thepaingamepodcast.com and follow us on all the socials. Thanks for listening, my little VIPs. Catch you on the other side.